It looked impossible. A first grader commanding 8 German shepherds like a military unit, walking to school every morning at exactly 7:15 a.m. Neighbors called it dangerous. The school called it disruptive. But hidden cameras revealed something no one expected. When you discover what this little girl was really doing, you'll understand why those dogs would die for her. Stay until the end because what you're about to witness will change everything you thought you knew about loyalty and courage. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The sun rose gently over Maplewood Elementary, painting the quiet suburban street in shades of gold. But at exactly 7:15 a.m., the peaceful morning was interrupted by a sight that defied all explanation. Down Elm Street came a procession that looked like something from a movie. 8 massive German shepherds walked in perfect formation, their steps synchronized, their heads held high with military precision. And leading them, with a confidence that seemed impossible for someone so small, was 7-year-old Emma Chen. She was tiny, even for a first grader. Her pink backpack bounced gently as she walked, her sneakers making soft sounds against the pavement. But there was something about the way she moved, the way those 8 powerful dogs followed her every gesture, that made everyone stop and stare. Mrs. Henderson, watering her garden, dropped her hose when she saw them. "That's not normal," she whispered to herself, watching the strange parade pass by her house. The dogs moved like soldiers, their eyes alert, their bodies tense with purpose. At the front walked Ranger, a magnificent black and tan shepherd with scars along his muzzle that spoke of battles fought and won. Behind him, in perfect formation, followed 7 others, Bella, Scout, Max, Luna, Thor, Zara, and Shadow. Each dog was massive, each one trained to perfection, each one devoted entirely to the small girl who led them. Emma never looked back. She didn't need to. She knew they were there, just as she knew the sun would rise every morning. The bond between them was invisible but unbreakable, forged in something deeper than training, stronger than words. By the 3rd week of school, the complaints started rolling in. Principal Martinez sat in her office, staring at a stack of papers that seemed to grow taller every day. Parent after parent had called, emailed, and even shown up in person to express their concerns about that girl with the dogs. "It's dangerous," insisted Mrs. Patterson, whose daughter Sophia was in Emma's class. 8 German shepherds. Around children. What if they attack someone? "Where are her parents?" demanded Mr. Roberts. "How can they allow this? It's disrupting the entire school environment." The security footage told the same story every morning. At 7:15 a.m. sharp, the cameras would catch the procession turning the corner onto School Street. Emma walked with purpose, never hurried, never rushed. The dogs flanked her on both sides, creating a protective barrier that no one could penetrate. Teacher after teacher had tried to approach her about it. "Emma, honey," Mrs. Williams had said gently during recess. "Where do all these dogs come from? Why do they follow you to school?" Emma's response was always the same. She would look up with those dark, serious eyes and say quietly, "They're helping me." When pressed for more details, she would simply repeat, "They keep me safe." But safe from what? That was the question no one could answer. Principal Martinez decided to investigate. She pulled Emma's file, looking for clues that might explain the unusual situation. What she found only deepened the mystery. Emma Chen. 7 years old. Straight A student. No behavioral problems. No disciplinary actions. In fact, her teachers consistently described her as polite, quiet, and remarkably mature for her age. But there was something else in her file that made the principal pause. Medical accommodations. A thick section of paperwork that was sealed, requiring special clearance to access. Principal Martinez had seen these before, usually for children with severe allergies or medical conditions that required special attention. She reached for her phone and dialed the number listed as Emma's emergency contact. "Hello." The voice on the other end was warm but tired. "Mrs. Chen. This is Principal Martinez from Maplewood Elementary. I'm calling about Emma and her companions." There was a long pause. Then, quietly, "The dogs." "Yes, the dogs. Mrs. Chen, I need to understand what's happening here. Parents are concerned, and frankly, I don't know how to handle this situation." Another pause. When Mrs. Chen spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. "Principal Martinez, would it be possible for us to meet in person? There are some things about Emma that you need to understand. Things that aren't in her regular file." The meeting was scheduled for the following morning, before school started. Principal Martinez arrived early, her mind racing with possibilities. When Mrs. Chen walked into her office, she was surprised to see a woman in her early 30s who looked exhausted, as if she hadn't slept properly in months. "Thank you for meeting with me," Mrs. Chen said, settling into the chair across from the principal's desk. "I know this situation must seem unusual." "That's one word for it," Principal Martinez replied gently. "Mrs. Chen, I need to understand what's going on. 8 German Shepherds following a 7-year-old to school isn't something we see every day." Mrs. Chen reached into her purse and pulled out a thick manila folder. "Before I explain, I need you to understand something about Emma. She's not like other children. She's special. In ways that most people can't see." She opened the folder and pulled out a medical document. The letterhead read, "Children's Neurological Institute." "Emma has autism," Mrs. Chen began, her voice steady but emotional. "But it's not the kind most people think of. She's what they call high-functioning, which means she can speak, she can learn, she can interact. But her sensory processing, it's different." Principal Martinez leaned forward, beginning to understand. "Sounds that don't bother you or me can be torture for Emma. Crowds feel like chaos. Unexpected touch can send her into a complete meltdown. The world is overwhelming for her in ways that most people can't imagine." Mrs. Chen pulled out another document, this one with a different letterhead, Service Animal Training Institute. "Those dogs aren't pets, Principal Martinez. They're not even regular service dogs. They're a specialized team, trained specifically for Emma's needs. Each one has a different job, a different way of helping her navigate the world. Ranger," Mrs. Chen continued, pointing to a photo of the lead dog, "is Emma's primary guide. He's trained to detect when her anxiety levels are rising, when the sensory input is becoming too much. He positions himself to block crowds, to create physical space for her. Bella handles crowd control. She's trained to create barriers between Emma and large groups of people. When kids try to approach too quickly or too loudly, Bella gently redirects them." Principal Martinez stared at the photos, beginning to see the dogs in an entirely different light. Scout is her sound buffer. He's trained to position himself between Emma and sources of loud noise. Max and Thor work together for deep pressure therapy. When Emma has a meltdown, they know how to apply gentle, steady pressure that helps calm her nervous system. Luna is trained for medical alerts. Emma sometimes has seizures when she's overwhelmed. Luna can detect them coming minutes before they happen, giving us time to get her to safety. Zara handles navigation. Emma sometimes gets disoriented in crowded spaces. Zara is trained to guide her along specific routes, keeping her on track. And Shadow, Mrs. Chen's voice broke slightly, Shadow is her emotional support. When everything else fails, when Emma is scared or overwhelmed or just needs comfort, Shadow knows exactly how to help. Principal Martinez sat back in her chair, overwhelmed by the complexity of what she was hearing. "Mrs. Chen, this is incredible. But why haven't you told us any of this before?" Mrs. Chen's eyes filled with tears. Because every time we do, people react with fear first. They see 8 German shepherds and think danger. They don't see what I see, a little girl who's trying so hard to be normal, supported by the most loyal team imaginable. Let me tell you what really happens every morning at 7:15, Mrs. Chen continued, wiping her eyes. Emma wakes up at 6 a.m. sharp. Always 6 a.m. Routine is everything for her, any change can throw off her entire day. She gets dressed in the same order every time, socks first, then pants, then shirt, then shoes. The dogs wait patiently in her room, each one knowing their role in the morning routine. Ranger brings her backpack. Bella brings her lunchbox. Scout checks the weather by the window and signals whether she needs a jacket. The others form their positions around her, creating a mobile safe space. The walk to school isn't a walk, Principal Martinez. It's a carefully choreographed operation. They follow the exact same route every day because Emma has memorized every step, every crack in the sidewalk, every potential trigger along the way. When they reach the school, the dogs don't just drop her off. They assess the environment. Is it louder than usual? Are there more people around? Is there construction noise or any other change that might overwhelm her? Only when they're satisfied that she can handle the transition do they allow her to enter the building. And even then, they wait. They position themselves around the school perimeter until she's safely inside, and they're there waiting when she comes out. Principal Martinez found herself leaning forward, captivated. Mrs. Chen, how do you train 8 dogs to work together like this? Mrs. Chen smiled for the first time during their conversation. We didn't train them. Not really. We found them. She pulled out another set of photos, these ones older, showing Emma as a toddler. When Emma was diagnosed, we tried everything. Traditional therapy, medications, special schools. Nothing worked. She was having multiple meltdowns a day, sometimes so severe that she would hurt herself. We were desperate. Then we heard about a program, experimental at the time, that was training service dogs specifically for children with severe autism. We applied, not really expecting anything. They assigned us Ranger first. He was a retired military working dog, actually. He'd served overseas but had been retired due to a minor injury. The trainers thought his calm temperament and protective instincts might be a good fit for Emma. The connection was immediate. Ranger seemed to understand Emma in ways that we couldn't. He could sense her meltdowns coming before any of us noticed the signs. He knew exactly how to comfort her, how to create space for her, how to keep her safe. Then something amazing happened. Ranger started, recruiting, I guess you'd call it. He would somehow identify other dogs, retired working dogs, rescue dogs with the right temperament, and bring them into Emma's circle. It was like he was building a team. Each dog that joined had a specific skill, a specific way of helping Emma. And they all worked together, like they'd been trained together for years. Principal Martinez, Mrs. Chen continued, I know this seems overwhelming. I know the other parents are concerned. But I need you to understand something. Since Emma started school with her team, she hasn't had a single meltdown. Not one. Before, she was having 3 or 4 a day. She couldn't handle crowds, couldn't handle noise, couldn't handle the unpredictability of school life. The dogs changed everything. Principal Martinez was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she'd heard. Mrs. Chen, why didn't you tell us this from the beginning? We could have worked with you, helped prepare the other families. Because, Mrs. Chen said quietly, every time we try to explain, people focus on the wrong thing. They see 8 large dogs and imagine danger. They don't see what you're about to see. She pulled out her phone and opened a video. This was taken yesterday morning, by one of the crossing guards. I want you to watch what really happens when Emma arrives at school. The video began with the familiar scene, Emma and her 8-dog escort approaching the school. But Principal Martinez found herself seeing it with completely new eyes. As they neared the building, she could see how the dogs positioned themselves. Ranger took point, scanning ahead for any potential issues. Bella and Scout flanked Emma, creating a buffer zone. The others spread out in a protective formation. But then something happened that Principal Martinez had never noticed before. A group of older kids came running around the corner, laughing loudly and roughhousing. In the video, she could see Emma freeze, her body tensing at the sudden noise and chaos. Immediately, the dogs reacted. Bella stepped forward, gently but firmly blocking the older children's path. Scout positioned himself between Emma and the noise source. Ranger moved closer to Emma, his calm presence grounding her. The older children, surprised by the sudden appearance of the large dogs, naturally slowed down and quieted their voices. They gave Emma space without even realizing they were doing it. Within seconds, Emma had regained her composure. She took a deep breath, adjusted her backpack, and continued toward the school entrance. The dogs maintained their protective formation until she was safely inside. "Do you see?" Mrs. Chen asked softly. "They're not attacking anyone. They're not being aggressive. They're simply creating the conditions Emma needs to succeed." Principal Martinez watched the video again, this time focusing on the subtle interactions between the dogs and the environment around them. She saw how they anticipated problems before they happened, how they created solutions without confrontation, how they made Emma's world manageable. "There's something else," Mrs. Chen said, pulling out yet another folder. "Emma's teacher, Mrs. Williams, has been documenting something interesting." She handed Principal Martinez a series of observation notes. Day 1, Emma participated in group reading time without incident. Day 3, Emma volunteered to answer a question in math class. Day 7, Emma helped a classmate who dropped her crayons. Day 12, Emma initiated conversation with another student during lunch. Principal Martinez looked up, confused. "This is good news. What's the significance?" Principal Martinez, before the dogs, Emma couldn't participate in group activities at all. The sensory overload was too much. She couldn't focus, couldn't learn, couldn't connect with other children. But now, knowing that her team is just outside, knowing that they're creating a safe perimeter around the school, she's able to relax. She's able to be a regular 7-year-old kid. The dogs aren't just helping Emma navigate the physical world. They're giving her the confidence to navigate the social world too. Principal Martinez set down the papers and looked directly at Mrs. Chen. "I need to ask you something, and I hope you understand why." The other parents, they're concerned about safety. 8 large dogs around children. What can you tell me about that? Mrs. Chen nodded, as if she'd been expecting this question. Every one of those dogs has been through extensive training and certification. They're not just service dogs, they're therapy dogs, emotional support animals, and medical alert dogs all rolled into one. They've been tested with children, with loud noises, with chaos and confusion. Their training specifically includes how to remain calm and protective in school environments. But more than that, she continued, these dogs understand their job. They're not guarding against other children, they're guarding Emma's ability to interact with other children safely. She pulled out another video on her phone. This was taken last week during recess. The video showed Emma on the playground, surrounded by her classmates. But instead of the 8 dogs forming a barrier around her, they were positioned at a distance, watching but not interfering. "See how they've spread out?" Mrs. Chen pointed. "They're not hovering. They're giving Emma space to play and interact normally. But they're positioned so they can intervene if needed." In the video, a ball came flying toward Emma's head. Before anyone else could react, Scout was there, gently deflecting it with his body. Emma didn't even flinch, she just continued her conversation with her friend. The other children have actually started to see the dogs as part of their protection too, Mrs. Chen added. Last week, when a stranger approached the playground, Ranger alerted the teachers before any of the adults noticed anything unusual. Mrs. Chen, Principal Martinez said slowly, I have to admit, when I first saw Emma with those dogs, I was concerned. But listening to you now, seeing these videos, I'm beginning to understand that this isn't just about Emma, is it? Mrs. Chen's eyes brightened. That's exactly right. Emma's success affects everyone around her. When she's calm and able to participate, the whole classroom benefits. When she's having a good day, she's helping other children, contributing to discussions, being part of the community. Her teacher told me something beautiful last week. She said that Emma has become one of the most empathetic children in the class. Because she understands what it feels like to be different, to struggle, she's incredibly kind to other children who are having difficulties. The dogs have given her the stability she needs to develop that empathy, to use her own challenges as a way to help others. Principal Martinez found herself thinking about some of the other children in the school who struggled with various challenges. Mrs. Chen, do you think, would Emma be willing to talk to some of our other students? We have children dealing with anxiety, social challenges. She would love that, Mrs. Chen said immediately. One of Emma's dreams is to help other children understand that it's okay to need help, okay to be different. The dogs have taught her that sometimes the best support comes from the most unexpected places. As their conversation continued, Principal Martinez began to understand that Emma's story was about more than just one little girl and her service dogs. It was about community, acceptance, and the power of looking beyond surface appearances. Mrs. Chen, I have to ask, what's been the hardest part of this journey? Mrs. Chen was quiet for a moment. The judgment, she said finally. People see 8 German Shepherds and they immediately assume danger. They don't see the countless hours of training, the careful selection process, the incredible bond between Emma and her team. We've been asked to leave restaurants, asked to move to different seats on airplanes, had people cross the street to avoid us. And every time, Emma sees it. She understands that people are afraid of the very thing that keeps her safe. But you know what the amazing part is? Emma has learned to advocate for herself. She'll walk up to someone who seems scared and explain, in her 7-year-old voice, that her dogs are helpers, not scary animals. She's becoming the kind of person who helps others understand difference instead of fear it. Would you like to see what really happens during those morning walks? Mrs. Chen asked. Tomorrow morning, if you're willing to observe from a distance, I think you'll see something that will change how you view this entire situation. Principal Martinez nodded eagerly. Yes, I'd like that very much. The next morning, Principal Martinez positioned herself across the street from the school, watching as the familiar procession approached. But this time, armed with knowledge of what she was really seeing, everything looked different. She watched as Ranger assessed the environment, noting that there was construction noise from a nearby building. She saw him signal to the other dogs, who immediately adjusted their formation to provide additional sound buffering. She observed as a group of excited children came running toward Emma, eager to show her something they'd found. Instead of creating a barrier, the dogs simply positioned themselves to slow the children's approach, giving Emma time to process the situation and respond appropriately. Most remarkably, she watched as Emma herself began directing the dogs with subtle hand signals, showing a level of communication and partnership that spoke to months of careful training and bonding. With Mrs. Chen's permission, Principal Martinez also observed Emma during class time that day. What she saw challenged every assumption she'd had about children with special needs. Emma was engaged, confident, and remarkably social. She raised her hand to answer questions, she helped a struggling classmate with a math problem, and during group reading time, she volunteered to read aloud. It's like she's a different child, Principal Martinez murmured to herself. Mrs. Williams, Emma's teacher, joined her by the classroom window. She is different, she said softly. When she first started school, she couldn't make eye contact, couldn't handle group activities, spent most of her time in the corner. Now look at her. In the classroom, Emma was leading a small group discussion about their science project, her confidence evident in every gesture. Knowing that her support team is right outside has freed her to be herself, Mrs. Williams continued. She's not spending her energy worrying about sensory overload or social mistakes. She can focus on learning and growing and connecting with others. Word of Emma's story began to spread beyond the school. The local newspaper picked up the story, and soon the community's response shifted from concern to curiosity to admiration. Parents who had initially complained began to seek out Mrs. Chen, asking questions about autism, about service dogs, about how they could better support children with different needs. "My daughter came home yesterday asking if she could learn sign language," one parent told Mrs. Chen during a chance encounter at the grocery store. "She wants to be able to communicate with Emma better." Local businesses began posting signs welcoming service animals and their handlers. The community center started hosting information sessions about autism awareness and accommodation. "Emma has become an ambassador," Mrs. Chen told Principal Martinez during a follow-up meeting. "Not just for children with autism, but for the idea that difference doesn't mean dangerous, that unusual doesn't mean wrong." 3 months after that first meeting in Principal Martinez's office, the school held its annual spring festival. As families gathered on the playground for the event, a familiar sight approached from down the street. Emma and her 8 guardians walked toward the school, but this time, something was different. Instead of stares and whispers, children ran up to greet them. Parents waved. Teachers smiled. "Emma! Emma!" called out Sophia, the daughter of Mrs. Patterson, who had been one of the most vocal complainers. "Can I pet Ranger? My mom said it's okay if you say it's okay." Emma smiled and nodded, giving Ranger a subtle signal. The big dog lowered himself slightly, allowing Sophia to gently stroke his head. "He's so soft," Sophia whispered in wonder. "And his eyes are so kind." Mrs. Patterson approached Mrs. Chen with tears in her eyes. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "I was so focused on what I thought was dangerous that I couldn't see what was actually beautiful." Principal Martinez watched the scene unfold with a sense of deep satisfaction. The fear had been replaced with understanding, the suspicion with acceptance, the isolation with community. 6 months later, Emma's story had inspired changes that reached far beyond Maplewood Elementary. The school district had implemented new policies for accommodating service animals and had started training programs for teachers working with children with special needs. Emma herself had become a confident, happy child who loved school and had formed genuine friendships with her classmates. The dogs continued their daily routine, but now they were greeted as honored members of the school community. "You know what the most amazing thing is?" Mrs. Chen told Principal Martinez during their final interview for a follow-up story. "Emma told me yesterday that when she grows up, she wants to train service dogs for other children who need help. She understands now that her differences aren't limitations, they're her superpowers." And her team of 8 guardians taught her that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is help others feel safe enough to be themselves. As the camera pulled back for the final shot, it captured Emma and her 8 German shepherds walking home from school, surrounded by classmates and friends, no longer an unusual sight but a beloved part of the community fabric. The little girl who had once walked in formation with 8 silent guardians was now walking in the warm embrace of understanding, acceptance, and love. Sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin with what looks impossible. Sometimes courage comes in the smallest packages, supported by the most loyal hearts. And sometimes, what we fear is exactly what we need to understand. If this story touched your heart, remember that there are children like Emma in communities everywhere, navigating a world that isn't always designed for their needs. Share this story, spread awareness, and remember that sometimes the most beautiful transformations begin with a single moment of understanding. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own stories of loyalty and courage in the comments below. Because every child deserves their own team of guardians, whether they walk on 2 legs or 4.